Good afternoon. It's Monday night, 8 p.m., 8 o'clock in the p.m., as they will say in Chicago. Dialogue with Dozie is on your airwaves. Welcome to your Facebook and YouTube Live. So glad you joined us. Listen, take time out, share out the show, tell somebody else about it. Hop on. It won't be good unless you share it with others and unless you write comments and talk back and forth. Your boy's flying solo tonight. My brother KV is still on assignment. One of these nights we hope to get him and we have to do it via tape. Tonight, we're doing this tonight. It's a hot button Monday night. We got a lot of hot button topics to deal with, but it won't be a hot button unless you press the button and turn up the heat. Let's do that tonight. Tonight, we start our show with the dedication, and we humbly dedicate our show to the loving memory of Pope Francis. Pope Francis left us today, last in the morning, in the 40 hours in the morning, after having done an Easter address yesterday. And we just want to celebrate him and celebrate his tolerancy, his openness, his love, his sense of universalism to everybody, his sense of humanism, his leadership, his sense of accountability, dealing with issues that were incumbent upon the church that he leads, and for trying to speak a loving truth to power, and for leading people in the better way. Spiritual leaders like that, I can follow. Tonight, we celebrate Pope Francis, and we thank you all for joining in on this celebration. Now, some of you are saying, well, you know, you're a Christian and he's Catholic. Let's just say that I'm celebrating him tonight, or the dialogue is celebrating him tonight for his message. And his message, he was true to his message. Not speaking of yesterday's message, I'm talking about the message that encompasses papacy. And so we're celebrating that event. We're celebrating what he stood for and how he used his mouthpiece. I want to just go over some of the tenets of his speech yesterday, just a few of them, and just look at them and just talk about just who he was. And a lot of it was mentioned in yesterday's speech. And I don't think yesterday's speech was just a put on. I don't think it was just something. Easter speeches, we used to give them in churches. We made fun about that yesterday. Our kids would do Easter speeches, and not saying our kids didn't believe in the speeches they were given, but I'm saying we're celebrating him because he is a man who is celebrating. I think his opening yesterday from the empty tomb in Jerusalem. We hear unexpected good news. Jesus, who was crucified, is not here. He has risen. Look at him. Look where they lay him. And he starts out by saying, love triumphed over hatred, light over darkness, and truth over falsehood. What's wrong with me? Truth over falsehood. And those are the things that we celebrate, that he celebrated. I want to kind of talk about, just roll with me. I'm flowing with this. I'm getting into this. I'm following this. His message yesterday, of course, was faithful to the spirituality in which he believed in, and that was in the risen Christ that we celebrated yesterday. Let me just say this: what a great gift of God to let a man of God leave after having delivered a message to the people of God about the risen Savior and rising his soul from this earth to a better place. What a great way to go. He talked about it being a celebration of life. He talked about life and the human family, and it was on the rise again. He did make an allusion to the whole. Let me just use the word. I'll just say it like this. He said that life is precious, and that was what we all needed to know. But he didn't just talk about life being precious in Muslims. When we talked about life being precious for all people who were victims of war, people who were victims of poverty, people who were victims of funds being snatched away from them and would cost them from eating. He talked about victims of health care being taken away and reevaluated to the negative for the good of most of the people. And those were the kind of things that he talked about yesterday, and that we celebrate. We just celebrate. He had a mind. He spoke about climate change. He was a pope who looked at that. He spoke about the immigration issue that is a hot topic in our nation tonight. Can't wait to just focus in on some of that. Talk a little bit about it later, but to really focus in on that when we do this show, this 100 days evaluation of this administration. And he talked about, let me just quote his words. May the risen Christ grant Ukraine, who was devastated by war, his Easter gift of peace, and encourage all parties involved to pursue efforts aimed at achieving a just and a lasting peace. He also talked particularly about the people in Yemen, who he said were experiencing one of the world's most serious and prolonged humanitarian crises because of the war that's going on. Let's find solutions through a constructive dialogue. And he talked about may the light of Easter inspire efforts to bring about harmony and peace between the Western Balkans and sustain the political leaders in their efforts to bring these factions together. I just like what he was talking about. He talked about the African Republic of Congo. Congo, in the Sudan and South Sudan. All of these nations that are at unrest. He talked about them coming together and how peace has to be the ruling and the prevalent issue of our day, and that people of goodwill would stand and push and fight, in fact, for peace. He talked about the principle of humanity never fails to be the hallmark of our daily actions. And so, without saying who he was speaking to, and you and I know who he was talking to, he talked about may Easter be the fitting occasion for the liberation of prisoners of war and political prisoners. Does that resonate with anybody? Anybody know anything about any political prisoners today? And he spoke on those things. And he just ended. The last words that the Pope said very publicly to most people was, and I'm going to reinterpret the word Easter to say, Happy Resurrection Day, everybody. My dear wife and I were blessed to stand right where he delivered that message from on about a year or so ago, almost 2 years ago, and to sense all of the history and everything associated with the papacy. His predecessor, they said, I've been monitoring the local news, the national news. One says his predecessor was one who says, if you had your homework to do, his predecessor was one who would say, get in there now and get that homework done. Whereas it says that Pope Francis would be one that says, now you know you got to get their homework, sit down and get it done. Two methods, but successful in any sense. And we just thank God for his general sense and his sense of compassion, but yet also we truly thank God for his sense of accountability. He was one of the things that he tackled firsthand when he became the Pope several years ago. And we had a Pope to resign. His predecessor resigned, and upon him being elected, which is an election/selection process, one of the things that he promised and he did do was help to bring about accountability, to settle lawsuits, not just to make them go away, but to settle them and help people who have been victims of abuse by priests in that denomination. Now, we could talk about that, but I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about that. At some point, we can talk about what kind of fosters that and what sets that up, what makes that happen. Okay. But for now, I just want to celebrate the life of the Pope and those things that made this Pope, that we'll remember him very favorably in history, how he will go down in history as someone that we will smile about, and will go down. The history will treat him well. I know the script calls for us to contrast his administration, his papacy, as it is called, to contrast his papacy with today's leadership. And when we talk about today's leadership, we talk about mainly a person who's I heard it best said that not me but thee. In other words, you conform to the law, you do everything by the bill, but that does not apply to us. And I say that as I think about the Secretary of Defense, who is coming out a second issue, a second opportunity where using the Signal, the app. I don't want to be quoted on that. Allegedly using that to, that's facts, to share strategies going into a warlike situation, and allegedly a second instance of that has been detected. And I'm not talking about a person who would say that person will be fired on the spot, but when it's in his administration, loyal supporter, it gets a pass. Now, when we really do this 100-day look back, and that may be a 2-part show, when we really take the time to look at that, I am going to look at the people who put this administration in place, who supports this administration, and who continues to like this administration. The polls, for all of the zaniness that has taken place, and that's the best word I can come up with, all of the craziness that we have endured for the past 100 years, all that we have endured for the past 100 years, for the past 100 days, almost 90 plus days, for all that we have encountered, the polls are relatively supportive of the zaniness that has come out of our nation's capital. Allegedly, and I say allegedly because a lot of people complain that the election results were as a result of a certain South African immigrant, his company's link into the election situation. I'm saying it's alleged because I haven't done the due diligence. I'm saying it's alleged because I haven't done, I've heard, I've listened to, I see, I hear, but I haven't done my own due diligence enough to say that happened because he did this, his company did that. That's how this person got back in office. Because I haven't done that, that's why I want to use the terminology alleged at this point. So I don't want to make this big contrast between what we saw in a pope who God allowed to go out in good grace on Resurrection Day. What a great day! Now, people who are spiritually minded, you understand that to live is Christ, to die is gain. So you understand that he was promoted of sorts. Not of sorts, he was given the ultimate promotion from this life. That's the way we look at it. We who Christians who believe in the resurrection and in our Christ. And I'm not going to just compare him against the craziness that's going on today. By the way, and I mentioned this in a sermon recently, while I was in Tallahassee, Senator Osgood, while at a function, at a forum that we all attended on the other week, prayed for the president, his family, his cabinet, the legislature, the courts, and everybody that would be a part of his administration. And some people, the amens kind of silenced when that prayer went forth. But I side with Dr. Osgood, Senator Osgood. I agree with her. If anytime an administration needs prayer, and they all do, but if anyone ever needed prayer, this one certainly needs prayer. So, and prayer doesn't mean that you agree with what they're doing. Sometimes prayer is about redirecting. Prayer is about giving them a better path. Prayer is about appealing to the better side of the person. Asking our Heavenly Father to help make that happen. So I celebrated that with Senator Osgood. I agreed with her prayer. And for those of you who pray, and when you pray for all government, you would be wise to pray for all government heads, because after all, at least four that we know of have nuclear armament that allegedly have the capability of wiping out the world. So it would be best to pray for their judgment, for their health, for their discernment, their listening to the God of the universe. And so I think it is, in fact, then apropos. Okay, so I agree. So I'm not going to make the contrast. What am I doing? I'm kind of leaving all of that to that 100 show on May the it's coming up soon in May. Okay, May the 5th, I think it is. It's a date in May, and I want to get some of the supporters of the administration on, and maybe have another person, because your boy don't have a whole lot to say. I'm just gonna have fact, and I'm gonna say, how can you support this? How can you support that? How can you rail on this? How can you say this is better than not only the previous administration, or almost any administration in American history? That's what I want to do. And I hope that group, that party put together, when I asked them several years ago they gave me a bunch of black faces. Whoever they gave me, I'm going to ask them back on the show and ask them very politely, kindly, and lovingly to explain to Dozie Land how you support these positions. Is that nice? All right, I'm not going to always be like that, but I won't be like that about that. Well, it happened again. We had another active shooter situation in Tallahassee at FSU on last week, and we lost 2 people lost their lives. People say people lost their souls. No, 2 souls were taken. No, souls are not taken. God has the last say in the soul. Their life on this earth were taken. So you can say 2 lives were taken. And then several have been injured, I understand. One of the 4 that were injured was injured critically. And so far, thankfully, it seems like that person is going to make it. And another piece of the tragedy, as a former law enforcement agent, that person, the shooter's mother was is a Leon County sheriff's deputy. And kudos to Leon County, the FBI, the Tallahassee Police Department, all of the news agencies involved for keeping her name under wrap. By now, it may be out. Well, we know his name, we know the son's name, but they did everything immediately following that tragic event. They did everything to keep her name under wraps, and I really appreciate that as both a former police officer and somebody who dabs in journalism. My kudos to them for combining to make that happen. The shooter was alleged to have right-winged tendencies. Supposedly, there was a protest that was going to take place either on campus or which would emanate by FSU students. You know, oftentimes students are ideologues, and they use that time to perfect their ideologies. You know, you test a little bit here, you feel this, you feel that, you find out what's going to work best, what works best for the people. As you get older, you start what's going to work best for me. A lot of journalists are right now. A lot of politicians have long since sold their hides. You know, Nobody wants to center this guy in the Republican Party because you're going to get primary. The Democrats are scared because they'll offend the MAGA base. People are taking that account. Private citizens are afraid because they don't want to see happen to what we're going to see happen a little later in a few minutes in the show. They don't want to see that happen to them. We're dealing with a lawless time like we've never seen, when the courts have absolutely, we're coming to that constitutional crisis that we thought would happen. None of us could have ever predicted that within the first 100 days we would be there, where the courts are being defied on the matters of citizens of this nation's, the thing that we cherish the most, and that's our freedom. That's what this nation is all about. And so, but back to that tragedy. This young man supposedly had far right wing ideologies, which were likened to white supremacists, and they were close to those of supremacists. Yes, go ahead and relate to me. Don't let me do all this talking. Talk to me. Holler at me, Matt. Share some of your opinions with me. Let's chop it up. And so, because of that, he went there with a firearm that he had privy to. Supposedly he was a police explorer, whatever Leon County Sheriff's Office's version of that was. When I was a policeman, that was what the local city departments called those who had law enforcement aspirations. And while they were in school, they got to be, wear a little semi-police uniform and go to class. And I think there were some opportunities in certain arenas, none life-threatening, where they actually may have accompanied an officer. I didn't say ride-alongs. I said they may have accompanied an officer or something like that. So he was a version of one of that. So he had probably some orientation. I didn't say practice. Probably had some orientation with firearms. We know that firearms, by way of his mother's occupation, were somewhat available and those kinds of things. So just a horrific. The second thing I want to talk about that event was, do you know how limited it was on the news cycle? Do you remember that an active shooter event would be all that you would look at on TV? It would dominate MSNBC, Fox News, CNN. It would dominate the news cycle for 3 days, almost 24 hours. That's all. That would be the lead story. And they would only break away to go to another quote unquote breaking news story, but get right back to an aspect of that. Well, it doesn't happen like that anymore. That was what stuck out the most to me. I was headed to an appointment, and my brother notified me of it, and I monitored as best I could, and then monitored by phone, by reading once I waited on the appointment to begin. And as soon as I got back in the car, I started monitoring again. It almost was off as soon as I got back in the car within hours. And certainly later that evening, that night, it was over. That's because guns are prevalent in this nation. Gun violence is prevalent in this nation. That's because the right-wingers, and here in the state of Florida, as my mentor would say, the great state of Florida, where after the Parkland tragedy, a tragedy that I remember ever so vividly, hearing the sirens, getting the 1,000 text messages, then later remembering two of the victims shaking their hands just 3 months prior to, and that night hearing the Sheriff Israel talk about the number of lives that we lost. We thought it was 2 or 3 people, and learning just how many people were lost in that massacre. Florida made some responsible gun laws, which they are quickly repealing, and not only repealing, going way to the far extreme. I'm not saying that's what caused that shooting. That was somebody's mindset, rather triggered by mental illness, an evil spirit, an evil heart. But we know it happened, and we know that the gun was easily accessible. because in the great state of Florida, guns are meant to be easily accessible. The one protest that we have won in the last 3 years was that we're not doing open carry. Prayerfully, before the sessions end or the recurring sessions, that won't be a part of Florida's landscape over the next few years. Hopefully, prayerfully. We'll wait to see how that works out. But that's what happened. Before we go to the midway break, I want to take time out and I want to shout out Harvard University. I want to shout out Harvard University. The dialogue respects highly that at the risk, and right now it appears that $2 billion have been chopped off the table, off of Harvard's budget, $2 billion worth of grants, research grants. You know what those count? What research grants? Scholarships, tuition, jobs, facilities being built, facilities being maintained. I don't think you see me counting them out. All of those things being lost because Harvard said, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, rather than take your evil money, because it's evil if you're going to put stipulations on us doing good work because we differ politically, philosophically, ideologically, because we differ. You're going to take the money, the people's money that was allotted for us for doing the good work, for trying to cure cancer, for trying to find out what can we do to stop some of the outbreaks, to try to see that the CDC doesn't have to monitor another pandemic. You're going to cut our funding because we don't agree with you. Harvard stood up to my utmost. They stood up in courage. That's my reading today. Moses, in one of his final exhortations to Joshua, who was succeeding him and leading the children of Israel into the promised land, say, you be, I'm putting it in my language, you be courageous. Courage is something that should be likened to righteousness. If you're standing for the right, then you should be courageous about it. The outcome might have a short-term disappointment. The outcome might bring short-term death. You only die 1 second and you enter into life. The outcome might mean that God has to raise up another leader. But the strides that you would have made would have advanced the cause to a place that it never would have been had you not stepped into the shoes to do it. And so kudos to Harvard University, university like Columbia and others. I don't know if you didn't have the inward resources, if your alumni base was not strong enough, but you decided to crush under the pressure. Law firms are under the same pressure. Some law firms who disagree philosophically with the lunacy in DC right now have been told that they're going to lose government contracts, which is the lifeblood of many of their firms. Some of these firms hire minorities, and they may have hired them under the DEI initiative. It might have just been the good heart of people, not because the government used to mandate it. But what we do know is that some of them have buckled under, and the government has cut a deal with them. The deal says that you will supply, in some cases, hundreds of millions of dollars of free legal services. On the other hand, other law firms have stood up and said, no, I'm going to fight you. I'm going to defy you. I'm not going to fall for that. I'm not going to listen to that. You're not going to run my firm. You're not going to make the calls here. Whatever it takes, I'm going to stand tough and stand tall. I'm wearing this shirt today amongst many choices that I could have worn. That's not a brag because I'm not a big clothing guy. But it's Edward Waters College. It's now Edward Waters University, but it's Edward Waters College because it ties me to our dad, Dozell Varner Sr., who was a man of courage, a fighter who stood on what he felt to be right ground, who stood on and you know him, who stood on what John Lewis would call good trouble. It is becoming routine. And so I needed to tie to him. I get to talk to my mother, thank by the grace of God. I get to talk to her 2 or 3 times a day. But I got to I had to tie into him. And so I wanted to wear this and stand in courage and to be encouraged and to help others be encouraged. One of the things I didn't talk about, and I got to go to break, was we talked about universities who are caving under the pressure. We've talked about law firms, funders who fund 501c nonprofit organizations, people who help people register people to vote, they help people find jobs, they help people rebound when they're coming out of incarceration, they help people get housing, that help people become to work through the immigration laws. Those companies, those 501(c)(3)s, the groups that come together that fund them are being attacked by the government. The groups that fund, a lot of the groups that fund many 501(c)(3)s that help individuals, and it's usually Black, brown, poor people. You don't have to be both, but those 3 categories, and they're not mutually exclusive. They've come under attack. This administration is stripping them of their 501(c)(3) status. I even heard of one case where one company, a large company in America, the big 3. Went after one of the groups that they funded. They went back and asked for their money back. The money's not coming back. They've already been those services were delivered. But that's what's happening in the great United States of America. Let's go to break. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about this in the break, and we're gonna move on to some fun stuff. GoGigaX.com. They got all of your virtual needs. They not only got them, but they got them with quality. They'll make you look good. They make your product, they make your brand look good. GoGiga Creations, GoGiga X. Check them out today. Do you see the website at the bottom of the screen? Check them out. Let them help you. Saw the celebrities they have worked with, the groups that they're still working with, the Toyas and Marquias and company. Let them hook you up. They do web building and all of these things in a qualitative way. GoGiga X. Let them help you. Let them hook you up tonight. Don't put it off. Do it tonight. We thank you all for what you do for the dialogue. We thank you for what you do for many of us in your network. We're grateful to be a part of your network, and we are thankful for the work that you do. Now, to those who watch, go out and support GoGiga X, y'all. All right. Tonight is a new segment. I can't see it on the screen. I have to pull it up on my own. And that's not because I'm that blind. I'm not claiming blindness. It's because I just can't see the screen is small. There we go. Thank you. The next segment is this who you are? I want to emphasize the you. Is this who you are, America? Is this who you are? Is this who you are, America? Are you a nation that strips people of their freedoms without any measure of due process? I don't mean any measure. I mean any respect for, any care for the rule of law. Is that who you are, America? Is that who you are? Who ship people off the streets like a phantom in the night, like a ghost, more like the coward? Puts them on a plane, defies the highest court in the land, and lands them in a Gestapo guerrilla-like prison, led by hooded guards. Is that who you are? In the land of the free and the home of the brave, prison guards show their face. Behind those faces may be ugliness, ugly conduct, ugly character, ugly morale, ugly schemes, ugly mindsets, but they show their faces. Is that who you are, America? You treat people like you see depicted on this picture. You bend them over, you hog tie them, you give them a most miserable plane trip, and then you take them and you take my money, our money, Mac, our money, dialogue, Dozie land. You take our money and you pay $1 million to a prison in El Salvador and other third world nations who the leader of this administration would have been heard referring to during the first term as an S-hole country. Is that who you are, America? Is that who you are, America? You pile people up and treat them worse than cattle, sling them together, you bound them together. Because a person thinks a certain way, they come to this nation to get an education under legal terms, on a legal visa, educational visa, and you snatch them away and pull them from their families where they can't hear, they can't communicate, their families can't communicate, nobody can talk to them in fear for their lives. Is that who you are, America? Fathers being separated from families, mothers being separated from families, children being snatched. Nobody knows where they are. Is that who you are, America? Is that who you are, America? America, who is next going to be looking for people who look like me, full citizen, but because I don't fit the mind, the mold set, the mind, I'm not molded in the mindset of this administration, because I'm a dissident politically, a dissident mindset-wise, a dissident ideologically, will be snatched off the streets, snatched out of our homes, snatched out of our churches, snatched out of our synagogues, snatched out of our mosques, snatched out of our temples. Is that who you are, America? America, are you a nation that no longer agree to the rule of law? You say that the courts, whose job there is to interpret the Constitution of the United States, and if it's bigger than any one man, but yet you allow one man and a rule of mobsters to commit atrocities to its citizens, to change the world's economy, to rob poor states, which most red states are, of funding because of ideology. Is that who you are, America? I can't do any more of this. I'll talk more about it in a few weeks, though. May the 5th, we're going to assess 100 days of this administration. Whether they'll come on the show or not, we're going to be asking that question. Is that who you are? All right. I'm going to go and kind of flip the script and look at some fun stuff and, my orientation, fun stuff. You know what I'll be talking about. I'm going to be talking about sports, and I'm eventually going to be running to the NBA playoffs, and they're on right now. those kinds of things. One of the things they didn't have a chance to talk. Well, let me knock this piece down first. How are you guys feeling about the NBA draft? Cameron Ward is likely the first pick. That's who they're looking at. They're slating him to go to Tennessee. This kid out of Penn State, this defensive back, that's where a lot of defenders came from, is like the second. And of course, our Heisman Trophy winner is looked at along the third. And it was thought that Shedeur Sanders was kind of like a lock for number 4 if he didn't go in the first 3 rounds. But now they're talking about he may fall away into the 20s. If he falls into the 20s and the Pittsburgh Steelers don't trade up and get him, man, I'm going to have to find me another team to call my favorite. Now, a couple of years ago, I developed a strategy where I knew that Pittsburgh was not going to be strong enough to go far in the playoffs, and I'm still drinking that Kansas City Kool-Aid. And I tell my brother, he called me a sellout because I like, I said, man, I like offense. I like what Andy Reid does with that offense. I like what happens with the offense out in Golden State. I'm an offensive guy. But they better not let Shedeur slip if they got any shot at him. And I'll say this: I heard the talk earlier on one of the sports debate shows, and they asked the question, how is it that Shedeur's stock was so high coming out of the season? The man threw 40 touchdowns. He threw for 10,000 yards, and his touchdown interception ratio was very low. So how is it that since then to now his stock has dropped? Somebody said, well, as it gets closer to draft time, they look at a lot of the other intangibles. They look at attitude. They look at leadership. They look at all of those things. Well, I as a coach and raised by a strong male figure who believed that all of those were credible attributes. None of those things kept him from excelling at a HBCU, basically whose program was built from the ground up, rebuilt from the ground up, and going to a D1 school, Colorado. Did it at Jackson State, HBCU, and he did it at Colorado. Now it sounds like I'm tooting Shedeur Sanders bandwagon. Probably I am, because I think he deserves to be favorably looked at. I just hope he lands at a good team that he maybe under a year's tutelage under a good person like I wish Russell Wilson was still at Pittsburgh, but under a good tutelage like maybe Mike Tomlin, he'll be ready, and whoever his offensive staff is, he'll be ready to take that team and take it back to the glory days. Now, I'm not going to just I am going to say this. Let me talk about Pittsburgh. The draft comes up. I think it's Thursday night, guys, and we may want you to look at that. Thursday night, okay. Yeah, so you know what? While we're talking about some of these things, you need to be thinking about creating your own custom website and starting to maybe even book a podcast like what we do at the Dialogue. Book something like this and start your own show like the Dialogue and book it today. You just need to go to Go Giga. You can talk about Tomlin. You can talk about Shedeur Sanders. You can talk about is that who we are, America? You got a voice just like I do. Look at doing it right here with the Go Giga team. I'm just excited to be a part of this team. And opportunities are out there. I like what Kevin Garnett are doing. I don't like all the language. Just because you got a podcast that gives you a freedom that you don't have on the regular airwaves to just curse and be vulgar and all of that, because locker room talk, because you can get away with it. I like, and that's one of my issues with LeBron. Too many kids look up to him and they think that the language that he uses is acceptable. And I just wish that these guys would be more responsible. I like what they do on the pivot. Yeah, they do use profanity, but they do a much better guardrailing of that. Ryan Clark and Fred Taylor and those guys is they don't just, and even Stephen A is out of control. I wish Disney would curtail the cursing that he does. He pushes the limit and does just what he can get away with, the custom cursing. I wish he could get away from all of that. All right. But if you want to start your own podcast or website, do it right here. Go Giga X. Let's be partners. Let's be on the same network. I want to talk a little bit about Tomlin since we're talking football. Hey, Mike Tomlin, please tell me this is above your head. Please tell me this. Aaron Rodgers, 42 years old, I think, is 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers, who's coming off of a Achilles injury. Please tell me that Aaron Rodgers, who just started showing a glimpse of the old Aaron Rodgers, I'm talking about the old, chronologically old man Aaron Rodgers, not old as far as talent. Aaron Rodgers at the end of the Jet season last year. Please tell me that you all have a strategy. Please don't tell me you got him hijacking that team. I don't want to see any team. I don't have too many teams in the NFL I hate. Well, I didn't care for the Patriots doing their dynasty, and a lot of the reasons why I kind of came out with the penalties they sustained. But please tell me that's upper management that got you on hold with him, and you haven't moved on to him. Because if he comes on that team, unless he delivers anything short of a blowout Super Bowl, I have nothing but disdain for what he's done. I don't care about your personal problems. If you were still playing with a team in your youth, you were trying to, if you were in your contract year, I bet you wouldn't be handling anything like this. If you got personal problems, sit out. If you got personal problems, tell the franchise, hey man, not this year. But I'm putting the onus on the Steelers. Do not let this clown hijack this organization. Draft a quarterback. Please, please, please don't pass over the likes of a Shedeur Sanders or others. Have a plan in mind, even if you do bring this aged Aaron Rodgers on the team. I'm not going to let him blast him. I'll leave it at that. So much for football, so much for that. The draft is Thursday, Friday, Saturday on ESPN. Why am I giving them free advertisement? Enjoy the draft this week. And I hope your favorite team gets the players that you want. And I hope mine does too. All right. I want to transition to basketball. We're talking basketball. Hey, we got to do a best set. We got to when we're at break and that upbeat Go Giga prepared music is playing, the dialogues music, you ought to see the guests while we're in the background jamming to the beat. I know they somewhere secretly filming, and we're gonna show those bloopers. Maybe one time we're still gonna do the anniversary show. Listen, I promise y'all we're gonna look at In Living Color. Just hold on, just busy schedule. Those things take a lot of time, personnel, and everything. So work with us on that. It will be coming out in the next 2 years. For therapeutic reasons, I might need to get on that as soon as I get off the show tonight. But you'll be seeing those shows in the upcoming weeks. Okay, now might be the show to come up before I have to do that Serious 100-day assessment show. I'm assessing you, America, not a demented 79-year-old. 34 convicted felon, adjudicated guilty of rape, sexual assault in the crimes in court. Not that guy. Before I get there, I might have to do something fun. Get real fun. All right, let's talk basketball. The playoffs are on. I want to talk first about the deal that was brokered that will bring. Well, first of all, kudos to Stephen A. Smith, signed that new contract, $20 million. I think he was, I don't know if it was just a bargaining chip, trying to get 24 over the next 5 years. So he's got $20 million a year, and he's still got his side stuff going on. He has his podcast. Shout out to him, great man, who follows in the tradition of the great ones over at ESPN, like Chris Berman, Stuart Scott, the late great Stuart Scott, John Sanders, and many, many others. My main man, Chris Berman, Boomer, who I got an opportunity to talk to in the early days, when you could just pick up the phone and dial Bristol and just say, I want to speak to Chris Berman at 11 o'clock after that 10 o'clock Sports Center. He comes to the phone and talks to you. Those days were far beyond those days. Okay, so I want to talk about the playoffs that's going on. We've had two shockers. The home teams have won, except in Los Angeles. Hey, we got a funny side thing going on with that. You got your boy Shay Shay saying OKC, KFC, UFC, Lakers in 5. I heard Stephen A. Smith come up with one today, and I have to go back and get that. They even got a mean cartoon because Shay Shay has done several of them. 5 what, Shay Shay? What 5 are they going to do? You talking about you're taking a team out in 5? They're going to win the Western Conference in 5? The NBA chip in 5? We'll see how that works out for you, Shay Shay. They lost convincingly to the Minnesota Timberwolves, one of my favorites. It was a team I had to watch when I was living up there. I had to go living up in Illinois. Couldn't see the Bulls because Mike was playing. There was always a sellout over at the United Center. Drove all the way out to Minneapolis to see Timberwolves play. And I got to see when Kevin McHale, who was the GM, put the ball in a young 18-year-old Kevin Garnett's hands. I got to see him start his career out there. They were one of my favorite teams. They still are. Now they got this brother out of Georgia called him Ant-Man, Anthony Edwards. Like they're saying, don't let him mess around and run rampant on you guys, because if that happens, there won't be no coming back. You're down 1 game to nothing, Shay Shay. If they win 2, I'm not sure your Lakers got enough with a 42-year-old LeBron. What is he, 41? Whatever, how old LeBron is, he's phenomenal. But whatever he is, I don't know if he got enough tank. Luka's a serious stud. I don't know if the 2 of them. Reed is awesome. I don't know if the 3 of them are going to be able to overcome that youth experience and the chip on their shoulder for what Luka and Dallas did to them last year. We didn't talk much about the trade. We didn't talk much about that. We're seeing how that goes down. We're talking about the Lakers hosting the first round game in the playoffs. Dallas lost a play-in game on last Thursday night. They're sitting home. They did have injuries, but the trade didn't work out too well as far as this year. We'll come back and evaluate them again after next year. So your 2 losers in the first round, the Lakers lost on their first round bid, and the other team that lost were the last night. What do you expect? They lost to the Warriors. I always like the Houston teams. Almost employed out in Houston. Saw the Rockets play several times out there. But Houston lost last night. Wasn't one of Houston's better showings. All of that youth, all that athleticism, all of that size advantage. Golden State kind of took it apart. I think when Ime Udoka pulls that team together, you're going to see a more competitive series. But I'm telling you, Western Conference, I'm telling you, NBA, I'm telling you, Eastern Conference, don't let the Lakers, OKC, don't let Golden State mess around and come up in the Western Conference championship series. Don't let them get past you, OKC, or whoever services, and that end of the bracket. Don't let them end up playing you guys, playing that Eastern Conference champion, who's going to probably be the Cavs or the Celtics. The Celtics didn't look great yesterday, but they've never looked good at home. But championship teams do that. Whatever happens, they're able to coalesce and win, and that's what they did. They pulled it together, and they won that game against a determined Orlando team. I don't know what kind of bench, what kind of depth Orlando has, but it wasn't enough to overcome the Celtics yesterday. And the Celtics, when they go on the road, they're a hungry team. So that Celtic team has depth from top to bottom. They're skilled. And Jason Tatum, man, that brother is playing with a chip on his shoulder because he thought that, he didn't have his greatest series last year. He would have liked to be MVP. I'll just put it like that. Last year, he would have liked to have been MVP. Didn't happen. You're going to see him playing the work to make that happen this year. So the Celtics and the Cavs look like the cream of the crop in the first round games. So far, that kind of played out. And let me tell my Dozie land, listen to what happens in these playoffs games. One game, man. Basketball is a 4 out of 7 series. One game. Only Michael and the Bulls can come down from being down 0-2 at New York and come back and sweep the series. Only Miami Heat pull that off with Shaq and a young Flash, i.e. D Wade, could pull that off. Don't think that's the order of the day. But one game's lost. Each game has its own distinctive personality. Don't base what happens in these series of games that's going on now, game 2, with what happened last week with game 1s. I have no illusions about my Warriors. I do have hope for my Heat that they could overcome. They played a pretty good game last night. That Cleveland team, man, they got off the bus shooting 3-pointers, and every time they needed one, there was one waiting. Maybe the home cooking can help. Maybe Eric can go back in the lab and pull something out, and Bam and Tyler and the boys can come up together and win that thing. By the way, kudos to the Miami Heat for being the first 10th seed to win a play-in tournament and earn a playoff spot. The playoff spot is always against the number 1 team, but you're going to eventually have to get there anyway. So we'll see how that happens. And when I start talking about my Heat for next year, Kevin Durant's probably going to be on the trading block. If Giannis and them lose that series to Indiana in this first series, Giannis might want to get out of Milwaukee. We'll see what magic Pat and them can pull down there to make that happen, where he can either get Durant or Giannis. Now for Giannis, you move a couple of quality players, I'm going to live with that, but don't wreck that team for Durant. Please don't wreck that team for Durant. You got a decent nucleus of young talent. All you need is another superstar. I would be looking for a younger superstar. I said it, yes. Durant's probably one of the top 12 players of all time. The hit on him is that he's never been able to pull a team to win on his own. His 2 championships, remember, are with Golden State. He left OKC and went out and joined them after they beat him, came back from a 3-1 deficit and went out and beat them. So not knocking him for that. I'm so glad he helped my Warriors win, but he didn't win by himself in New Jersey. He was coming off his injury, but he didn't win in New Jersey. He hadn't come close to winning in Phoenix. But perhaps if you get him down here with Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, and that young boy, what is his name? My goodness, I can't think. Hit those 3-pointers in the overtime against Atlanta. If you keep him, and I don't know, Wiggins, we probably would lose him if you brought in a Durant. But you got some more. Don't let Hero go. Don't let Adebayo go. And for goodness sake, Ward, that young 7-footer, do not let him go. Cultivate him. The league's going to eventually evolve around where a big man is going to have a high profile again. The Heat has one right now. You sure don't want to lose him. Hey, next week we'll be back on. We'll talk more about more of the playoffs, and maybe we can get that show in that we've been trying to do in living color. Dialogue with Dozie. Bless up. Talk to you next week.